guys, and welcome again to another round of predictions. Once again, we're going to be focused on the Premier League this weekend. So we've got a full round of fixtures, and obviously we're on the back of a Champions League game week, so there's a lot of interesting factors and games ahead. I'm joined again by Jack from the Betting Island team. It's good to see you, Jack.
Good to see you too, Lewis. It's going to be a good weekend, I think. Let's straight into it, which is probably the game of the weekend. Chelsea and Liverpool. This is going to be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, it's an intriguing game. These big six matches always are, but I think because both teams are in a little bit of a poor run of form, Liverpool have been sloppy this season and have lost 2 on the bounce, including the Champions League game in midweek. Chelsea winless in 3 in the league. So I don't think either manager's under huge pressure, but there's question marks about sort of both. Liverpool trying to integrate new signings, looking like they lack a bit of defensive balance, and Chelsea question marks over some of the tactics maybe. So I think this could be one of those big six games that's quite tight. Don't necessarily see a lot of action or goals. I see maybe some mistakes, and could be a game that's settled by the odd goal. So I'm not sure really with markets. I think you're probably going to be looking at markets like I think maybe under 2.5 goals could offer value in this match. Could be settled by the odd goal. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's an intriguing one for sure. I see what you're saying about being a tight one. Both sides, as you say, they're not really in the best of form, and a lot of expectations for Chelsea this season that they were going to be real title contenders, and if they lose at the weekend, they'll be 10 points behind already. So it's a must win, I think, for Chelsea, which maybe might mean they come out a bit. But Liverpool, defeat last night, looked poor, and their signings aren't really making an impact yet. So I think they have to respond here, which is where I am leaning towards a Liverpool victory. I think they just have to show what they're capable of. I think the likes of TK and Isak especially, and Wirtz need to start producing their massive price tags. So I'm thinking a sneaky Liverpool win here with maybe both teams scoring if you want to increase the odds.
I certainly agree with both teams scoring. I think Liverpool, I think it's 2 clean sheets in 10 now in all competitions. They just look weak, vulnerable at the back. Obviously, Konate's not playing well individually. They just look like a team that's struggling to adapt. So it's almost like Slot's having his transitional season this season, I think. And so I definitely back Chelsea to get on the score sheet. It's hard to see Liverpool so many late goals. They've got enough individual quality to click. Just think it'll be quite tight. I see what you're saying. I think if there is going to be a win, it probably will be Liverpool. I think they've only lost 1 of the last 11 against Chelsea. There's a few draws in there, but yeah, I think if there was going to be a win on Sunday, I'd agree. Liverpool are probably the team to back.
Another interesting one on Sunday. Brentford host Man City. I think this is sort of a game similar on the lines of the Chelsea-Liverpool game. That could be a tight one, just given Brentford's home record. They've drawn with Chelsea, and last week they beat United at home. So. Yeah. It's going to be a tricky one for Man City to go to Brentford.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really tough place to go. Man United aren't obviously in the best form and struggling those sorts of games anyway. But they're so direct. Brentford. They're very similar to the team that they had under Thomas Frank. Very good at set pieces. Very, very, very direct. High intensity. They're really difficult to play against. So it's going to be a clash of styles. Obviously, City will want to get the ball down, try and play. If they can impose that, because of the form of players like Haaland and Phil Foden, who's starting to play really well. If they can get on the ball and dictate the game the way they want it, then it will be a win for City. But if Brentford can impose themselves physically, then it's going to be a tough game, and I think that's why it makes it such an interesting match.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think this is it's a very important game for City. I think there's still slight question marks about whether this Man City team is as good as the ones who have won titles the last few seasons. So I think if they can go to Brentford and put in a good performance, I think that will, especially with Liverpool dropping points last week and Arsenal, needing a late goal against Newcastle. So if City can put in a strong performance here, they really will stamp their marker as a title contender. So I think they will win.
Yeah.
But just given Brentford's home form, I think Brentford will get a goal. So I'm going the same as the Chelsea Liverpool match. I'm going with a City win, but I think both teams will score.
I had exactly the same thing when I looked at the markets. I think it is one of those tough games. It's the sort of game that might trip City up if they're not quite at the level. We saw it against Spurs. Spurs had obviously under Thomas Frank, very high intensity performance, really rocked City. So I think it could be one of those games. But I agree. I think City have got too much quality. Like I said, Haaland's in amazing form. Foden's starting to play well. They're just starting to click a little bit. So I think they'll probably have too much. But interestingly, you can back City to win and both teams to score with Ball Sports, which probably offers a little bit of value. You can get about around 3, so that's pretty good odds. But I totally agree. I think it will be a City win, but definitely Brentford have got enough quality and set piece threat to score.
Yeah, I agree. Now, a game that I think is a bit tricky to call, just given the form of the away side, is Leeds and Spurs. Spurs are continuing, even a new manager, continuing to be unpredictable. Spurs, they play brilliant away at Man City, struggled against Bournemouth, struggled against Wolves, and Brighton, of course, they came back.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know what to expect from Spurs, but Leeds, I've been very, very impressed with Leeds, especially the last few weeks. They struggled to get goals early on, but now they seem to have found their feet. So this is an interesting one. What do you think, Lewis?
Yeah, I agree. I actually earmarked this as one where we could see one where the one of the big 6 teams loses. I think you've got lots of factors in Leeds' favour. They are coming into some good form. They will try and attack under Daniel Farke, and it's going to be a home game for Leeds. Midday kickoff. It's going to be a really hostile atmosphere. Plus Spurs played in midweek Europe, which we know teams can struggle, especially when they don't have the biggest squads, which Spurs don't. They were also touched on it. They were quite poor against Wolves last week. They were poor against Bodo Glimt in the Champions League. So I think there's some question marks over their form, and it's not the sort of place you want to go if you're struggling for a little bit of form. I think Calvert-Lewin's looks quite good for Leeds as well. The guy in midfield, Anstack, looks really good, suited to the Premier League. So I actually, this would be one of those matches where if you want to pick a result and you want to back a slightly surprise result, maybe go for a Leeds win.
Yeah, I was sort of struggling there. I think this was the sort of a game where I was thinking of avoiding the who's going to win and focusing on young goals.
There's that too.
And going maybe a both to score or an over 2, but I can see what you're saying about a Leeds win, and I think you've swayed me. I think Leeds might sneak an out victory in this one, as you say. 12:30 kickoff, and Spurs have had an away trip in the Champions League, not the easiest away trip, and now they're coming back for an early Saturday game. We could see a scalp here at the weekend.
I agree. The only downside is I think Ball Sports are putting a Leeds win at around 2.63, which may seem a little low given they're a newly promoted team. But I guess it reflects the factors we've been talking about: home advantage, the fact that Spurs are unpredictable. So the money line it's always a high risk bet. But yeah, I totally agree. If you want to explore those other markets, I definitely think this is a game where both teams score. Could be open and entertaining, and I think we could see definitely over 2.5 goals scored in the game.
Yeah, I've had the exact same thing. Now, another promoted side you would have thought a tricky prospect for them at the start of it. About 5 weeks ago, you would have said this was a clear sort of thing. Man United versus Sunderland, but Sunderland have been excellent this season.
They've been outstanding. They've done what a lot of the promoted teams that do well do. They've got some experience in Granit Xhaka. Midfield's been an absolutely fantastic song. They're defensively solid, well organised, and got a good goalkeeper. So they've ridden their luck. You have to, I think, as newly promoted teams, but they're playing really well. And like you say, the big factor is they'll go to Old Trafford full of confidence, and it's not the kind of place where teams go and are intimidated anymore. They'll go thinking they can get a result. I actually think that might impact the betting market, so because I think Sunderland might be encouraged to open up a little bit because they'll think they can get a win. And I think United obviously are porous defensively, but even we saw against Burnley, they can sometimes dig out these wins at Old Trafford. So I think this could be a game where we see over 2.5 goals scored, which is priced around 1.62. But I think this is definitely one where you avoid the money line because you don't know what Man United's going to turn up at all.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think you kind of avoid that because, as you say, United could easily come out and win this game comfortably, or you could find themselves 2-0 down after 10 minutes. You just never know. United, they were very poor defensively. I think, as you say, over 2 is the way to go here. I think if they don't win at the weekend, I think he might be sacked, especially going into an international break. It'll give them time to bed in a new manager. So I think it's very important for United. That's why I think they should come out needing to attack, get goals. But then again, I think Sunderland will be dangerous, probably on the counter-attack, but they will give it a go as well. So I'm thinking, over 2.5 is the way to go here because you just do not know what to expect with Man United.
Yeah, I think it could be similar to the Burnley game where Burnley sat in and they were, it was a bit of a nip and tuck game, but United eventually got the win, which is what I think as well. I think both teams will probably find the net. Sunderland are good at set pieces. United still struggling with their system. Obviously, Fernandes is one of their better players, looks completely lost in his new role. The defence although the system doesn't change, the personnel's constantly changing. There doesn't look to be many relationships in there. So, yeah, I think it's one of those games where I'd back both teams to score and, like you say, the over. But yeah, I think if it would be, this is one of those games where even if you want to take a risk and pick a winner, save it for another game, because this is just too difficult to score.
Finally, now interesting London derby coming up at the weekend. Arsenal host West Ham. I think again, if you had this match a couple of weeks ago, I would have said Arsenal easily. But now Nuno's come in at West Ham. They looked different. Looked a lot stronger defensively against Everton, but of course still didn't get the win or 1-1 draw. But this will be interesting again. I think especially Arsenal are riding high after last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal will be Arsenal. I think they're one of the most consistent teams in the league. They're always tough to break down. We'll more or less predict most of the starting 11. They'll have a lot of the ball and they'll be a threat to set pieces. I think they've scored more than double the nearest team in terms of goals scored from set pieces since the beginning of last season. They're so good at set pieces, and that, of course, has been an Arsenal West Ham weakness under Graham Potter. We've seen a lot of goals. I think that could be decisive in this game. You're right about Nuno. It's not a philosophy manager in terms of he comes in and I want to set up this style of play. He looks at the players he's got and he tries to get them motivated and gets the best out of them. So I think we saw that against Everton. So I think it will make it a tighter game, but I don't see them having enough to beat Arsenal. And like I say, set pieces, I think he's going to take him time to sort out the set piece frailties at West Ham. So I think Arsenal are good value for a win here, and it might be by a couple of goals in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think Arsenal will get the win. I went with two markets. I think Arsenal half-time, full-time was 1.7. I think they should come out at home, get an early goal, and then once they take the lead, they're a hard team to break down and score against. And as you say about the set pieces, it's a bit of a mad sort of one I've picked here, but with the set pieces, because you said Arsenal are very strong with them, West Ham very weak. I think they conceded 8 already this season. I've gone to look at the goal score market, maybe to pick one of the, if you're thinking of a mad odds bet, one of the Arsenal centre halves to score any time. And I think Saliba came on last weekend against Newcastle, so he should be back to full fitness to start, and he's odds of 11.0 to score any time. So I think it was just a sort of an out there one, but just with West Ham's frailties and Arsenal's strength, you just never know. With Gabriel scoring that winner last weekend as well, they're always interested in set pieces, and they should get a lot of set pieces because they'll be on the front foot, and they do actually sometimes play for the set pieces when they're out in the corner.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. They do. They very much play for it. And it's very interesting you mentioned Gabriel, because I had the exact same thought on the goal scoring market. I just picked Gabriel because it got the winner last week, and obviously he's a target for a lot of those balls. Timber's quite effective in there, but they tend to use some of their players as blockers. Gabriel's one of those ones who attack the ball. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you though. A centre back for an anytime goal scorer market normally is one to avoid, but for Arsenal, I think the stat is something like it's 36 goals I think they scored from set pieces in the last 2 seasons, which is phenomenal. And I think last 3 seasons maybe, and they're just such a threat, and he's got a good goal record for a centre back. So yeah, definitely look at that market if you want to take a slightly higher risk. It's obviously a low probability bet, but it's one that could deliver a return. And yeah, I also picked out both teams not to score at 1.62. In fairness, it's always a bit of a risk with someone like Jared Bowen playing for West Ham. He's such a good player, he can score at any time, and he can score individual goals as well, so he doesn't necessarily need his team to be on the front foot creating chances. But Arsenal are so solid, and they're able to rotate their squad more now, and they'll be fresh. So yeah, I think that might be another market to look at. I don't see West Ham troubling Arsenal too much offensively.
Yeah, that's an intriguing one you picked there. I think you're dead right. I think Arsenal are so strong defensively, as you said, and if they do go 1-0 up, they seem to rarely lose a lead or put themselves in too much harm. They're very solid at the back. So that concludes our weekend's predictions here for the Premier League. As usual, like and subscribe to the video, and check out bettingireland.ie for more expert tips and predictions. Lewis, until next time, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Yep, wonderful, Jack. I can't wait to speak to you again. Take care.